How often are you in the middle of a bite when the waitress comes over and asks, "How does your food taste?" I almost think they do that intentionally so that you are in the middle of tasting it while they ask. Well, it's kind of like when you're in the middle of an event and your boss comes over and says, "Well, how's it going?" And you kind of want to say, "Well, I'm in the middle of it. I'm not really 100% sure. And right now, it seems to be going fine." Well, we're going to talk about that in regards to serving pancakes, because when we share pancakes, which in this case is us talking about the case study of our app or anything else we share with people, we often want to know, how's it going? How does it taste in the middle of where they are at? So we'll discuss that and more on today's Antidote.
Stay tuned for today's Antidote, brought to you by the Renegade Success Network. Today's Antidote features a healthy dose of thought-provoking insights and information for business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders, and nonprofit professionals. Each day since March of 2020, this program has offered that one thing to help you continue on your own unique pathway to success. And now, Renegades, we bring you Bob Graham and Tom Brush.
Hey, Tom, from the car again. Always fun.
Always interesting. Yeah, it's a little garbled, but we're going to make it work as best we can.
All right. Sorry about that. I'm not sure what's going on. I'm in part of Baltimore where there should be perfect internet service. Not so much.
Well, sometimes we get unexpected results from things we put out there. How are you doing?
That is the internet not doing so well this morning.
I guess that's might be the case. All right, everyone. Well, welcome to today's Antidote, our daily broadcast and podcast, where we'll have a discussion around a topic. Today's topic, or this week's topic, is serving pancakes. Today, we're going to ask the question, how do they taste? And have a discussion around that. It's really about how do all those things that you put out there in your world, what is the feedback that you get once people have had a chance to dive into it a little bit? So we'll get to that in a little bit later in the show. If you happen to be watching today on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, or
LinkedIn Live,
we got like the Bob from outer space today. Please feel free to share your comments throughout our discussion. We know that will add to our show. And at the end of the show, we will offer our one thing, today's Antidote. And we hope that if you have thoughts and ideas around that you will share that as well. Because we know what we share, the value we put out there is beneficial to someone. And someone could be desperately looking for exactly what we have to share. If you happen to be listening to the podcast, where unfortunately there isn't the opportunity to comment while you listen, we hope that you will share it with friends. Share it with people who might be looking for some challenge, of information to address challenges they are facing, or to help them get unstuck. And that this may be the opportunity for them to get some inspiration in the morning, or maybe a few laughs, and then be able to move forward with what they have going on in their day. If you happen to be listening, we'd love for you, as I said, to share it with your friends, or you could also rate us, because that helps get the message out further. And
5 stars.
Is that how you'd like them to rate us, Bob? Is 5 stars?
Yes. That
awesome.
is my request. Yes.
Excellent. 5 stars would be great, because that will help get the information out to more people. If you really want to share a thought that you had and you're listening to the podcast, you can always join us inside the Ring of Renegades Facebook group and share your thoughts and ideas there. Easy to get to. Just go to Facebook, search for Ring of Renegades, and you can share and join our community. The other opportunity, you want to gather all that in one place and not be like, well, where's the podcast link and how do I get to the just go to our app. You can download our app at Google Play or in the App Store on Apple. It's called Renegade Success Network. And within that app, yes, within the app, you will be able to access the podcasts. You can access the Facebook group, and there's some other programs in there. There's a program called Find Success, the Renegade Way, to help you be more focused on those things that are going to move you further along your own unique pathway to success. So we would love to see you in that app.
Tom, there's also a really good piece in that app, the What's a Renegade?
If you are wondering if this is the first time or one of the first times you've been listening or watching, and you are not quite sure what it means to be a renegade, there are a couple of episodes where we go into fairly good detail about how we see a renegade. And I think that if you watch that, you will find or be able to find the renegade in you. So we hope that you will check that information out, download the app, and we will see you inside of there. So before we get to our topic today, we will go into our first piece of every show is celebrations. Bob, what are you celebrating?
So I'm going to combine my celebration with the big celebration today. It's not because I can. I'm a renegade.
Okay.
So it's National Cut the Cord Day. So this is a day where we're recognizing people who let go of the traditional cable TV, the satellite, and went to some of these online providers. I want to extrapolate that and say that it's a day to celebrate people who went out on their own and tried something unique. Didn't do what everyone had done and said, you know what? I'm going to use Sling. I'm going to use Fubo. I'm going to use Hulu. I'm going to use all these services, and I'm going to figure out how to make it work the way I want to make it work, which, by the way, sounds to me like being a renegade with how you access TV. And I think it's a great model. So I'm celebrating the people that did that, and I did that over the last year. And it's complicated, but you find your own way over time. You figure out what service works and does what you need to do, and you add some, you subtract some, but ultimately you figure out a solution that works for you.
How's that cutting the cord going for you right now?
Not so good right this minute.
Fair enough.
I would not want to binge watch my favorite TV show right now in the current state of the internet where I am.
Fair enough. Yes. I think it's interesting. The people who founded all those companies were like, I'm looking for something different. I don't want to deal with commercials all the time. I don't want to have to wait for some program. I want to watch what I want to watch when I want to watch it. So they clearly came up with a new solution. They are renegades. My celebration today is I'm completely distracted by that, and I've completely forgotten what it was. No, my celebration today is I'm going to celebrate some progress on my book. Something happened yesterday. I'm not even exactly sure what it was. Oh, I know what it was. I was looking at LinkedIn, and people were asking about your favorite question. Somehow somebody was asking something about your favorite question. They posted a question that is my favorite question, that question that's up here. What will you do today that your future self will thank you for? That was posted on somebody's LinkedIn post. And I responded that's one of my favorite questions. And then I got thinking, well, I have one of my all-time favorites is just the question why. And then I was like, okay, so that's two. Well, then I was like, the three questions I ask after every time I do something. What went well? What didn't go as planned? What would I do differently? So that's 5. And then I was like, well, we always ask, what are you celebrating? So I was like, okay, those are my 6 favorite questions. And when I said that, and I posted that in her post, I was like, wait a minute. I talk about asking questions in my book. And there is a great addition to why those are my favorite questions for a chapter in my book. So it helped me discover something that I could immediately go to and be like, here you go. Here's some information that I can add to my book. So that's what I'm celebrating.
I like it. That sounds great. And I know at the check-in and check-up that we do each Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern time, there'll be at least one person on that call who's going to be real excited for you on that.
Yes, indeed. No doubt. So did you say earlier, it kind of gargled, I wasn't sure. Was that also what Renegades are celebrating today?
Yes. I was celebrating it in myself, and also the broader message of just finding your own way, whether it's cutting the cord or figuring out your business or figuring out a tricky childcare situation on a day when you have a million meetings.
Okay. Excellent. All right. So we have been talking all week. Let's dive into our topic. We're talking about serving pancakes. And you may remember, or you maybe didn't know, last week we talked about making the pancakes. And so if you haven't listened to that, I would encourage you to go back to last week's episodes. because I think that will give you even more context for what we're talking about. And in reality, what we're doing this around was our building of our app, and sort of as a case study of what that looked like. And so Monday we talked about, one of the things that once you start putting it out there, once you start serving Pancake, the first thing people are going to ask is, where's the syrup? We talked about that on Monday. And then yesterday we talked about first impressions of those ideas, concepts, services, products that you put out. So today we're going to talk about, how does it taste? And that's kind of the question that gets asked in the middle of usually how things are going, right? And as I mentioned in the opening, is that usually right in mid-bite, the waitress or waiter comes over and asks you, how does it taste? So you have to take a moment to it, which is good, remind you that, and then go through it. And I think that's what happens with what we put out there, is people have to then, now that they're in it, it's not just their first impression that matters anymore. Now it's, what does the content look like? What is the experience like? And how does that impact them? So we're going to have a conversation around that today. Bob, do you want to share some thoughts on that?
Sure. One of the first things I think, am I garbled still?
It just sounds like you're chewing, even though your mouth isn't moving. There's like something going on that sounds like you're chewing or doing something. So,
all right, I'll try to keep it short then.
No, you're fine.
Okay. I think the first thing about how does it taste is, when I'm at a restaurant and someone asks me that, I'm usually not prepared to give them the feedback in that moment. And I think that's something we have to recognize in our customers, in our teams, that when we give them something new, we have to give them time to try it out. I'm working with a company and we're testing a GPS system for a fleet of vehicles. And as we test it, the more we get into testing it, the more we're finding things that we didn't realize at the beginning. On the surface, it looked great. But now we're in the phase where it's like, well, we wanted to do this. Can it do this? We wanted to do this. Can it do this? The guy who I was buying it from said to us the first day, he's like, this should do everything you need. Okay, so we assumed that it would all be set up. Turns out there's some add-ons that you have to do, and we didn't know that. So how did it taste initially? Tasted fine, because we were told it would taste fine. But as we got into it more, it started to be like, you know what? This doesn't taste the way we're used to this tasting. The pancake isn't what I thought a pancake would be. Now, we've got to decide with this GPS system, is it a pancake that we're comfortable with going forward? Can we make it do what we need it to do or not? And I think so. How does it taste? It's not a one and done. How does it taste, I think, has to be a constant question. And as we ask that politely, we also have to recognize that the person may not be prepared in that moment to tell us that, because they haven't tasted it enough. They don't know what to compare it to, or they don't want to hurt our feelings because it tastes lousy.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. I think that's, and I think we found that when we launched the app. We talked a little bit about this last week, is that we thought that people would want to just be in the virtual space, online space, so that they would fill out all their forms out online. And then someone shared that they would actually prefer to have a calendar in their hand, or papers in their hand, that they could actually, because that's the way in the past they have managed their day. And so for us, it was good to get that. Your feedback is really bad. To get that information at that time, so that we could then try to figure out how to move forward and how to modify it as we go forward. There wasn't anything we could do about it at the moment. We could only then just provide and hope that they kept moving forward and saying, that's great feedback. We will take that and consider that as we continue to modify what we're doing within this. And I think that's sometimes the challenge, is that when we get feedback like that it doesn't taste exactly the way we expected, or there's something that's a little off, like in your example, that we can either try to modify it in the moment, or say, well, keep going and we're going to work on that. Sometimes you can't edit it. And that's why you see all these different versions of software, phones, So once it's out there as a product, you can't really change it. If you're in the middle of a brand new event that you're running for your organization and someone says, man, I wish you had had a band instead of a DJ, we're not going to stop the event in the middle and be like, okay, let's go find a band. And so we have to sometimes just keep moving through with that information to then be able to adjust the next time we do something. Or we decide, you know what, I appreciate your feedback. A band is too expensive. They take too many breaks, and we want someone who's going to play all the way through. And so a DJ adds the value that we are looking for.
I like that. And I like the band analogy, because I think often what we hear from people when we ask how does it taste initially is a knee-jerk reaction. In your example, someone was expecting a band. They had been to another event like this and there was a band there, and now there's a DJ. And so to them, it feels awkward. It's not what their expectation was. And so I think part of that for us is talking about how we set those expectations, which is what we talked about all last week. If people are coming in expecting a band and it's a DJ, I would argue that the organizers didn't do a great job of explaining what the experience was going to be like. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. Oh, certainly. And I think that's, and that's a piece that we can learn from all parts of it, and I think that's the beauty of putting something out there and then asking the questions. I was thinking about this as I was writing a LinkedIn post yesterday. I was thinking, well, why do servers always come back and ask questions when you're at a restaurant? Well, one, they want to make sure you have a good experience, hopefully so you get a better tip. Two, they also, they're trying to make sure that your food comes out the way you want it. They are also asking those questions so that the restaurant can gain more knowledge, experience, and perspective around what's going on. So they can understand, like, okay, how were they doing when they walked in? And what state of mind were they in? How long did it take them to be ready to order? Then once they ordered and the food arrived, what was their first impression of it, as we talked about yesterday? Then we're going to come back and say, how did it taste? And then at the end, they're going to come back and say, how was everything? Those are the kind of the standard the questions you always get asked in a restaurant setting. And so it's all so that the restaurant can gather that information and then be able to share it, potentially to modify. If they're finding that people are taking a long time once they sit down to then be ready to order, then they can change the way that they do things. And I think it's helpful as we try to, in a restaurant setting, figure out how do we get more people through the door and then get them to have a good experience and then get out. Or maybe that's not our restaurant. Our restaurant is they're going to come and sit for a while. And how does that impact total revenue, number of servers we need, all those type of things to help figure out how does the restaurant then make its next pancake when they're ready to make modifications and changes.
And think about the difference between a restaurant and a coffee shop.
Certainly.
Right? Coffee shop, you go up to a counter, typically you order your food, you wait for your food, you take your food, you may dash out the door to get to work or to a meeting or something, or you may sit down on the sofa or at a table, you might read something, you might do a part of a puzzle, a completely different experience. And so in that scenario, when would you ask the person, how was it? And I think that's the thing that I would say my one thing today is to asking the question, how does it taste? How are we doing? How does this feel for you? Is fluid. And even if you ask it and the person doesn't really give you an answer, or they give you the answer, you were like, yeah, okay, oh, it's fine. I think that's not, oh, it's fine. I think that's, hey, maybe I didn't ask that at the right time. Maybe I need to ask that again a little later. And I think the more we're having that communication about what that pancake tastes like, the more we're able to build the next pancake in a way that more people are going to appreciate it.
Sure. I think one of the things about it is that first impressions, while important, are no more important than any other impression that you get later along the way. The pancake might come out and look beautiful, or the opening of the event is amazing, and then things sort of go sideways from there. And so the impressions are going to continue to change as you go through the process. If I say, wow, these pancakes look amazing, and then I eat them and they taste great, but at the end of the meal, I'm like bloated and not feeling as well, that's an important impression as well. Same as I know I've had food come out and like, well, that wasn't what I expected. That looks a little different. Yeah, once I dove in and ate it, it was so much better than I thought.
Yep.
And I think that's what happens is that, sometimes you get in there and you're at a speaker and or you're doing a presentation to your team, and maybe they look like, oh, he's just going to talk at us for an hour and that's all this meeting is going to be, because there is some needed information that you need to share at the start, and then the meeting shifts into something that's very engaging, and they get to the point where, well, wow, that wasn't as bad as I expected, because I thought they were just going to stand up and talk at us for an hour, and that meeting was going to be awful. And I think sort of checking in throughout that to see where people are at can make a real difference in how, as you said, so that we continue to check. And I think that would be my one thing, is that first impressions aren't the only impression, and that they are no more important than any other. So when you ask, how does your food look? That is important. Then when the server comes back and asks, how does it taste? That is also valuable. And then at the end, where you're happy with your meal, provides them 3 really great pieces of information, at least from that table, about how things are going. And I think that's one of the things that we should consider as we put anything out there, is asking for information at the beginning, in the middle, and then at the end, to see where were the areas that we were sort of hitting what people were expecting and those that we weren't. So I think that would be my one thing as well.
I like it. Nice. And thanks everyone for bearing with the technical issues.
Yes, indeed. Thanks for being with us today. We appreciate it. If you have your one thing, please feel free to share it. We'd love to hear it. If you want to post it inside the Ring of Renegades Facebook, that'd be great. If you are not yet a member of the Ring of Renegades Facebook, we would encourage you to go to Facebook, search for Ring of Renegades, ask to join, and tell us why you're a renegade, and you can become a part of our growing community. And I think the other thing is that, I think sometimes the impressions we get are tough to figure out, especially when we get competing impressions. And so sometimes that can be a challenge when someone thinks your product, service, or idea is great, and someone else that you share it with thinks not so much. If you're struggling with that, getting all those different, that feedback, those impressions, we think the Renegade Success Network would be a great place for you to come, where you can dive into those comments, questions, feedback, concerns with Bob or I, and 15-minute laser solutions anytime you want. And you can also connect and engage with our Renegade Success Network smaller community, where they are finding ways to take their next steps. And then you can participate in our Wednesday afternoon check-in and check-out, as Bob mentioned. So if you'd like to learn more about the Renegade Success Network, either message Bob or I. You can also go to renegadesuccessnetwork.com and learn more about our membership group. So with that, we want to thank you for being with us. We hope that you might consider joining the Renegade Success Network group, or going and joining our Ring of Renegades Facebook group, and that we might see you there. You can also download the app and you can access all of it. So with that, we look forward to seeing you soon, or we'll see you tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time, for our next edition of today's Antidote. Have a great day, everyone.
Hey, and embrace the renegade in you. It's worth it. You're worth it.
Okay. And cut the cord sometime. You might like it, or you might not. Take care, everyone. Thanks for listening to today's Antidote, powered by the Renegade Success Network. The Renegade Success Network helps you confidently create your own unique pathway to success. To learn more about the Renegade Success Network and how you can take your next step, follow us on Twitter, connect on LinkedIn, or join the Ring of Renegades Facebook group. For full details on how you can join our community, go to renegadesuccessnetwork.com. Embrace the renegade in you.